Oh, hi Miranda. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. How you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having
Appreciate it.
me.
So you are an author, yeah?
Yeah, I am. Surprisingly so. It just kind of happened, but yes, I am an author.
Or have you been writing your whole life, or was this something new that you just started doing?
About 5 years ago, I guess I embarked. My 20s, let's say, were a wild ride. So I figured I had a story, and why not share it? So I took the opportunity 5 years ago to write a trilogy and launch my last book earlier in this year, and it was a wild ride, let's say. Not only experiencing the 20s and living through them and going through a whole bunch of stuff, writing them was, or rewriting that and assessing was a huge overcoming and a lot of fun, a lot of learning, and a lot of new experience and opportunities that came through it.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little about the trilogy then?
Yeah, for sure. So the trilogy is called Chin Up Tits Out, and it's a little friendly self reminder. It's like a little mantra, right? So instead of fake it till you make it, or, whatever you tell yourself if you're feeling a little insecure inside, is to hold your head held high, stand up tall and proud, and continue to move forward no matter what life throws at you. Now, we know that within 2020, life has been a little crazy for all of us around the world. So if we stand up tall, chin up, tits out, and that little mentality reminder that, it's not going to be as bad as it may be if you have a negative mindset about it. So it worked out really well. So that was my trilogy, kind of the title of it. And the first book, really, you meet a young woman in her early 20s. She just graduated. Well, she graduated from high school, went into college, fell in love with a man from Africa, and decided to hop on a plane and head down there and try to bring him home up to Canada. And that book really encompassed a lot of triumphs and challenges that a lot of long distance couples see today: immigration issues, corrupt government, racial issues, long distance relationships, and young love. So that was the whole first book. Second book is when he finally gets to Canada, and they're thinking, yes, I got my partner, and I'm so happy, and we're gonna live happily ever after. But a mysterious diagnosis that leads into mental illness, that leads into family support when you hit rock bottom, and you don't know if tomorrow's going to be life or death. And that was a real challenging book to write. And a lot of the readers are like, oh, I can't get through this without shedding a tear here or there. And then the third book, which I just launched this year, called Just Breathe, it's really just that, is after you hit rock bottom, how do you crawl out of the rock bottom? You just breathe. You just get there. You put one step or one foot in front of the other. And that really encompasses, as me as a young 20 something, almost 30-year-old, when I was writing this, that was kind of the character age in that book as well. And is, figuring out who you are after losing everything, figuring out who your important people are after losing everybody, and just breathing through all of that. And it has this kind of sick, twisted sense of humor that no matter how deep or dark these corners got for our main character, Hadley, she always found the silver lining. And sometimes that silver lining was a little bit entertaining, a little bit twisted, and 100% dark, especially in those dark corners. So that's a little bit about the series and the wild ride that it takes you on.
What was the inspiration for this?
Oh, my 20s, my life was my inspiration. People in my life, my family and friends, were definitely an inspiration. And I found that writing in my third book. My first book was very much focused on a relationship that I had with somebody from overseas, and then this diagnosis that happened, and the mental illness and the addiction that came from it. And then the third book really stemmed from, my family and friends that were there to support and help me get through this. So I was asked a lot, like, oh my gosh, is this really happening to you? And I said, yeah, this is really happening. But at the time, you're just on autopilot. You kind of just put it on autopilot and you cruise through and you do the best that you can do. And it wasn't until after it was all done and the dust started to settle, it was like, whoa, I actually went through a lifetime in a decade. And in order for me as a person to assess it, make sure that, I assess the mistakes that happen so I don't make them again, assess the successes that happen so I can embrace them and, celebrate the fact that even though there was a lot of tragedy going on, I still did some good things. And then assess your relationships. Who's important in your life? Why are they important? Who are the good time Charlies that just come and go? And how do you let go of those people that aren't necessarily beneficial in your life or reciprocate in that energy? So writing my story was not only an opportunity to share it with the world because it was wild, but it was an opportunity for self-healing. And it was an opportunity to reach out to people that were going through a heck of a lot in their own lives and maybe find some relatability to that, going, oh, hey, I dated somebody from overseas and I dealt with that, or I dealt with mental illness, or I dealt with a partner with addiction, or I dealt with job loss or house loss or this, and this. And when I shared my story, the people that came back going, oh my goodness, I can relate to this, and I thought I was alone in it, now I don't feel alone. And that was the best feeling, was because I felt so alone in this journey. Even though I wasn't alone, I felt so alone. And so just to know that when you go through something really tough, that you're not the only person in the world that is going through something similar or that's feeling something similar. When you strip down the scenario, our feelings are still similar. Fear manifests, happiness manifests very similar inside of us, right? It depends on the person. For me, fear starts in my tummy and kind of crawls up to my chest, makes me nauseous, makes me cold and sweaty, where if I'm happy, I want to jump up for joy and like squeal. And then you start to talk to people about how fear manifests in them, and you get to be relatable to other people, and connecting and finding opportunities with others from around the world was definitely the top-notch star highlight of my journey of being an author and sharing this trilogy.
Was the relationship, that was something you were in personally? That you
Yes,
mentioned?
it
Yeah.
was something that I was in personally. I ended up meeting my ex-husband at a carnival. Go figure. My parents were
Mm.
super happy that I brought home a carny, and then traveled to the other side of the world to meet his family so we can bring him home. And both of us, we thought we were doing right, and we tried everything, and the universe was just throwing roadblock after roadblock after roadblock after brick wall. And I am on the cusp of a Taurus and an Aries. So like if a brick wall pops up in front of me, I just bang right through it and continue to press on. And my partner really wasn't into that as much as I was, and that's okay. We grew apart. There was a lot of stuff that happened in the almost decade that we were together, and when things fell apart and we went our own ways, I literally had to pick myself up from beyond rock bottom and figure out, simple things, what I liked, what I didn't like, self-worth, self-love, self-respect. I had to start right from ground zero because I had just continued to press on and give and give and give. So there was a lot of learning that needed to be done. But hey, you might as well learn it in your 20s instead of your 40s or your 50s, or, not learn it at all. Because when you get real dark and dirty and not happy, then you also have the ability to flip the flip side and be the equal, but on the other side, the happy, the excited, the balanced, the living in peace. And to me, I don't think I would have been able to live in this kind of happy, balanced place if I didn't experience that rock bottom myself.
At what point did you realize that it was unrepairable?
You know what? I really didn't have a choice. He was diagnosed with cancer. We battled with that for about 13 months. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. And then he got on a plane and left and was like, adios.
Oh,
and I was
okay.
like, no. So that was the point where I think I knew in my heart that it was over, even though the red flags had been happening for months prior to that. And I believe it was about a week after he left, I tried to reach out and to convince him to come home, and he just gave me sass and was like, why are you calling me? And I'm like, what? So at that point, I think that was the last straw on the camel's back. I just snapped. I'm like, don't come home. And then he was like, all right, cool. When I die, it's your fault. And I was like, holy moly. So when I say rock bottom, I was probably 6 feet under that when I was told that, because you just, again, autopilot. You're like, keep this person alive and do what you need to do and be the good wife. And then it backfired. It blew up in my face. But now it's like, hey, now when you are in a balanced partnership, it's give and take, and you're constantly filling each other's cups up, life cups up, and you're not consistently just giving until you're empty anymore. And you grow in the right direction. We were growing in opposite directions. I was given and he was taken, and it wasn't a fair or balanced relationship.
Well, I think the key word there is balance, because And I think the trick to a happy relationship is to find the balance. But it's not
Very much
but it's
so.
not balance in the sense of 50% from you, 50% from me. It doesn't work like that.
Nope.
And the people that I've noticed that tend to lose their relationships are the ones that spend too much time on counting cookies.
Oh yeah.
Well, you gave me one cookie, now I expect one back. And that never works.
No, it
but
does not.
There is a balance, because there are people that will just take,
Yep.
and people that give, and that's no good. The balance is sort of a never-ending struggle.
Oh, it is. And it's consistently evolving and changing. What works for us now as a couple, and we find balance now, fast forward 6 months, somebody could be a new job. You could have an expansion to your family. You could have whatever, right? And so that balance needs to change and evolve with you. It's kind of like a pendulum. You got to keep the ball rolling on your plate, right? Without it falling into those holes, whatever that game is.
Right.
And it's constant, but that comes, and I completely agree with you. It's kind of like finding a really good dance partner, somebody that you just move and jive with and feel the ebb and flow of the world versus the ebb and flow of that song or the music that you're dancing to. But I definitely think that going through what I went through was a huge contributor in finding a success in my current relationship. And that to me is wonderful, because it's like, okay, you've taken tragedy and you've learned and triumphed and come out on top with it. And so whenever somebody talks to me about, oh, this isn't working, or my relationship is failing, or, I went through something tragic with somebody, and it's like, okay, that's okay. Like, it was meant to happen this way. Like, what are some things that we can take away from it, learn from it, assess it, and then grow moving forward? Because, being stagnant in life, waking up and doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again doesn't get you anywhere better anyway. So you just always kind of try to move forward.
Well, that's very true. We do have to wrap this up. Give us the title of the book again. Is Just Breathe.
Just Breathe, and the series is Chin Up Tits Out.
Chin Up Tits Out. I like that. Okay. Also give people your website so they can come check you out.
Yeah, for sure. My website is Miranda Oh, that's OH.com. Super easy. And you can find me on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just type in Miranda Oh or hashtag Chin Up Tits Out, and you'll be able to find me.
Okay. Well, Miranda, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. I really appreciate our time together today.